All right, Mr. Saunders, thanks for joining us. We're here for the interviews for the District 9 County Council seat for the May primary. Thanks for taking the time to come meet with us.
Thanks for inviting
This is sure part of the Citizens League's voter education program, and what we endeavor to do in a nonpartisan fashion is gather information about the candidates and then publish it to the voters so they can have information available to them to help them cast their vote. What we'll do today is for about half an hour ask you questions, although what we start off with is for each candidate we'll give them 5 minutes or so to give an introductory statement as you like, and then we'll start with questions, and we just kind of do it in a roundtable fashion. What comes up we'll ask about. We tend to have things that are on our mind, but we may develop questions based on what we hear from you as well. So without taking up any more of the time, we'll turn things over to you and let you make your statement, then we'll get into the questions.
Well, I thank you for inviting me here today. This is an excellent opportunity to get the word out as to what I stand for and what I have done. So 5 minutes is an extremely long time. I don't think I've ever been to anything that was more than 3 minutes. Most of them are 2. So anyway, District 9, as you are well aware of, is a well-diverse district made up of 10 communities. I ran for this position 4 years ago, and am running again because I feel I could put my very diverse experience to help this ailing district. This district, as well as the surrounding communities, continue to bleed jobs. My own community found out right before Christmas that our largest employer was shutting its doors. 4 years ago, they were the largest expanding manufacturing facility in the state. It's amazing how things can turn around quickly. District 9 is riddled with abandoned retail, commercial, and of course, foreclosed homes. The one big positive change in the district over the last 4 years, of course, is the startup of the Racino in North Randall. The problem with that, though, is how long are they going to stay? Rumors have been flying ever since they opened that they're going to move to the Akron-Canton area. The district, with all its abandoned structures and land, lends itself to, unfortunately, crime. Ward 1 and 4 in Cleveland have had such a number of shootings and other crimes, drug-related and so forth, in the last few years that it's really becoming an epidemic. People are hurting in this economic slowdown and have not felt any of the recovery going on in the country as of yet, or at least it doesn't appear to be. I understand adversity, having had the rug pulled out from under me a number of years ago when my wife unexpectedly passed away, and of course leaving me 2 small boys at that time to raise on my own. So I know what that's like. I have worked on a variety of government levels and understand how government works. I've worked on the county level, the city level, township level, which all make up basically the government forms that the county regulates. I have been in some part of government for over 35 years, primarily working as an engineer, but have even served regionally as the Northeast Ohio City Council President twice, along with being on their board and all their other office positions too. So I know the area well. Engineers are trained to solve problems. I have been on City Council in Bedford for over 16 years. I have worked firsthand with Summit County Council form of government, which has been around for decades now. Though Summit and Cuyahoga counties I have a council executive form of government, Summit counties is a little different. I know most of our elected officials, both county and local, City of Cleveland, council, and so forth. I've dealt with them for many, many years. So I wouldn't have to have people know who I am if I get the position. The primary responsibility of county government is the distribution of services to those who need it the most. Human services primarily. And they have to continue, but challenging when times get rough, and ironically, that is when they are needed the most. The county has to do a better job of promoting economic development. We need jobs in this district and the entire county. We could assume others and other groups and organizations will do it for us, but we can't take that for granted. Cuyahoga County is one of the hidden gems in this country. The old theme of being the best location in the nation needs to be brought back and promoted. We are at the crossroads for transportation with a port to the north, several major rail lines run through this county, and major interstate highway systems that stretch to within 500 miles of most of the major cities in this country. With our arts facilities, museums, libraries, entertainment, and sports, and being the home to some of the leading world-class health systems, this area should be booming in development, and yet it's not. The county has to put together a major PR campaign and promote this region better throughout the U.S. and the world. We also have a resource which many parts of the country right now would love to have, the lake. It provides ample water and recreation. If elected to council, I plan on using my engineering background, government experience, and connections to get a viable district going and getting Cuyahoga County to stop its downward trend of losing jobs. And let's bring in not only jobs, but get our youth to stay in the area and get others to move here. We need to do a better sell job. This is one of the best affordable areas in the country to live. It is critical that we provide services to those who need them, but we need the jobs to pay for those services. Gambling money is a good carryover to fund accounts for now while we try to get this rolling, because it is going to take time. But we need to spur this area in growth. I will be an involved counselor in the communities that I will represent. I will attend council meetings, board meetings, neighborhood meetings, and community activities in District 9. Not just when requested to attend, but as many as the council schedule will allow. I have done this in my local community. I even won in 2005 Citizen of the Year in Bedford for being involved in everything. So I will just expand it outward. You learn what a community's needs are by being involved in those communities. And I have done that, and I will continue to do that. And I thank you for the opportunity, and hope that you will consider me if you do an endorsement, or at least, if nothing else, get the word out of what I stand for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess my first question would be to you. What specific steps do you think the county can take to promote economic development, both countywide and in District 9?
Well, something really simple is just putting out those billboards in airports throughout the country. Promote the area. We've got to do some